Okay, good Erev Shabbos, everyone, as we welcome you to our continuing study of the very difficult sugya of shtaros, and we are sponsored by A.B. Spry, who is doing it that all his children in the schus of learning the Bavas should be healthy Bavas, also by Michal Avram, who is doing it to support the learning of our Torah. And we're going to learn specially tonight Refuah Shalema for Brina Bastina Rezel. She should have a Refuah Shalema b'Seich Sherchei Yisrael. We are holding at the bottom of the last line of Yudalad Amud Beis, and that would be, for those using the article, that would be 14b4. And we are discussing what it means that for achilas peiros, that for consumption of fruit, you could collect from the nechasim leichayrim, available property, but not from nechasim mishabadim, not from the buyer. What does that mean? So Rabbi Bar Avhuna Amar, Rabbi Bar Avhuna says, Kigain, what happened is that I have land and Marshall misappropriates it. And that's a nice way of saying that he robbed it. He stole it. The thief that he is. And what happened is governmental extortionists came and Marshall fingered my field. In order to save his fields, he fingered my field and said, take this one. It was taken by extortionists. When I come to collect for the principle, in other words, for the fact that Marshall caused my field to be taken by the government, I could collect from Marshall, and if Marshall doesn't have anything, I could collect from buyers of Marshall's. But if I come to collect for the fruit that was in my field, I could only collect directly from Marshall. I can't collect from Marshall's buyers. Now, now we need to review what was Rava's explanation of peiros. Rava's explanation of peiros was where Marshall stole a field from me, and he stole a field from me, and he sold it to Dr. Block. He stole a field. Well, actually, let me set it up the same way I set it up always to you. It's talking about where I stole a field and I sold it to Marshall, right? So I stole a field and I sold it to Marshall. And Marshall put in an irrigation system. So what happened is Rava learns the case is as follows: that I stole a field, and the field that I stole from Nachman was full of fruit. And Marshall sorry, I'm mixing up the names. I'm trying to remember how I set it up for you yesterday so that we don't get confused. Now I remember. It's Nachman's field, and Marshall stole it, and it was full of fruit when he stole it. And we said that Marshall ate the fruit, and he dug pits, trenches, and caves. So in that case, when Nachman comes to collect for the damage, when he comes to collect from Marshall for the physical damage that he made to his field, for damaging it, making holes. There, if Marshall doesn't have the money, then he could collect from the buyers for Marshall. That's for the physical damage that he did to the field, digging, making potholes. For the fact that he took the payers, that Nachman could only collect from Marshall, he can't collect from the buyers. That was Rava's pshat of what it means that he can't collect from the payers. So, for the replenishment of the karka itself, restoring it, that if Marshall doesn't have the money, Nachman could take it from the people that bought from Marshall. For the payers, which is open-ended, you could only collect from Marshall. That was the way Rava learned that you can't collect for the payers from the Chasim Shabbat. Now let's review again. What did Rabbi Bar Avhuna learn? Rabbi Bar Avhuna learned that it's talking about where Marshall misappropriated a field from Nachman, and he fingered it, and he showed it to extortionists. So, and the extortionists take it, and they take the field, and they take the payers. So when Nachman wants to collect for the field that they took away, he could collect from even Marshall's buyers. If he wants to collect for the payers, there he could only collect from Marshall and not from the buyers. So Rava lo yama karaba, Rava doesn't learn. Rava lo yama karaba Bar Avhuna. Rava doesn't learn that it's talking about extortionists, because harihi yotzim mitachas yadai. The implication is when you get the field back, right? When now Nachman is trying to recover the field, bedina mashma. It's talking about that he's recovering the field in court. Here we can't get the field back. The extortionists are not going to. You're not going to get the field back from the extortionists. Rabbi Bar Avhuna lo yama karava. Rabbi Bar Avhuna doesn't learn like Rava, because harihi yotzim mitachas yadai. When you recover it, it's mashma that you recover it be'ena mashma. It's mashma you're recovering it in the same fashion. According to Rabbi, he says you're not recovering the field in the same fashion. You're recovering a field that's all a pockmarked, that has holes and trenches and caves. So Rabbi Avhuna doesn't think that that's this simple meaning over here. Rav Ashi yet offers a third pshat. Rav Ashi amal stadin ketani. We split it up into two sides. Kigain shegazel sadam echaverai. Marshall steals a field from Nachman, Malaya Paris. Marshall steals a field from Nachman that was full of fruit. The Ochales Paris, he eats the fruit, and after he eats the fruit, so Umachares Hasad, and then he sells the field. So, and remember, this is Nachman's field. So, Boloi Keach, when the buyer comes, what happens is Nachman Nachman has to get back his fruit, and he has to get back his field. So he takes the field from he takes the field away. Let's say Marshall sold it to Dr. Block. So he takes away the field from Dr. Block. When Dr. Block now he bought a field from Marshall, and Nachman, the owner, took it away from him. So Boloi Keach, when Dr. Block wants to get back the money that he paid for the field, Bolakech ligvais keren, for the principal, Gaivam nechasim mishabadim. He could collect even from the buyers of Marshall, because he bought the field from Marshall with a chrayis. Nachman wants to get the reimbursement that Marshall ate the payers before he sold it to Dr. Black. This is the Litstadim. We're talking about two people. The Lekeach is looking to get back his purchase price because Nachman took back his field. So for the purchase price for the field, if Marshall doesn't have money, he could take it from Marshall's buyers. When Nachman wants to recover the fruit that Marshall ate before he sold it to Dr. Black, he could only collect from Marshall's property, from his car shop, his own property, but not from the Nechasim Mishabad. Says the Gemara, Bein l'Rava, Bein l'Rabba bar Huna, asks the Gemara, why do we say that you only are not allowed to collect from the Nechasim Mishabadim for the payers, but for the field itself, you could collect even from the Nechasim Mishabadim. Let's say in the case of Rabba bar Huna, where Marshall showed Nachman's field to extortionists, so when Nachman comes to get back reimbursed, he could, for the field itself, he could take even from Marshall's buyers. And in Rava also, Rava says that where Marshall stole the field from Nachman and made damage the field by making caves and etc., he could take Nachman could collect from Marshall's buyers. But why could he collect from?
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Don't
be let in.
Yeah, the Marshall could collect. Nachman could collect even from the buyers. The question is why. There's no remember, you could only collect from the buyers where it's a recorded item, so that the buyers know to protect themselves. But Bein l'Rava, it's like a milval pehu. It's like a oral loan. Nobody, Marshall's buyers did not know that Marshall will show Nachman's land to an extortionist. Marshall's buyers did not know that Marshall will steal a land and damage it. So why should they be on the hook? It's like a milval peh. It's like an unrecorded loan. A milval peh in the Gayvim and the Chasim Mishabadim. That's the whole thing. If it's an unrecorded loan, the buyers don't know to protect themselves. So why should you be able to take it from the buyers? Says the Gemara, yeah, you know why? It's a really interesting answer that the Gemara gives. What happened is Marshall stole the field from Nachman, damaged it, and Nachman took him to court. And the court said that Marshall has to pay. And after that, Marshall sold stuff to Dr. Black. That's why they're on the hook. Because since it was a recorded Psak Bezdin, that's on record. And Dr. Black should have known that there's a lien from the court that Marshall has to pay for the land that he damaged, or Marshall has to pay for that which he fingered to the extortionists. The others of it. And then afterwards he sold it to Dr. Black. Says the Gemara, Yachi Peris Nami. If the court said that Marshall has to pay for the fruit that he ate from Nachman that was in the field, and that was recorded by the court too, so then you should be able to take for the Paris also from the buyers. Iachi Paris Nami says the Gemara, well, Kisha Ahmed Bedin ala Karen, there was only a verdict about the damage made in the field, or that the field was fingered to extortionists. But there was no verdict about the fruit that Marshall ate from Nachman's field. Says Gemara, I don't understand. Why would would Nachman go to court about one and not about the other? Says Gemara, my Pascha. Why would you set up a case like that? I mean, if there was a court verdict about the field, there should be a court verdict about the Paris that Marshall ate in the field also from Nachman. Why would there be a court order about one and not about the other? So the Gemara says, well, that's the way people deal. Before they go to court about the contents of the field, first they go to court to recover their real estate. Stama de milsa kitava inish. When they sue someone in court, karna tava bereisha. First they sue to get back their real estate, and that's why there would be a note saying that there's a lien by the court on Marshall's real estate because he stole from Nachman, or he fingered Nachman's land to an extortionist, and therefore that the buyer would have to protect himself from, and therefore you could collect even from Mishubadim. So now, the Gemara continues, and the Gemara does not let up over here till Amud Beis. Amud Beis is going to be easier.
Rabbi, can I ask a question?
No. Says the Gemara, V'savar Shmuel, does Shmuel hold that lekeach migazlan, that if you buy from a gazlan, less le shvacha? Now remember, this is what we spoke about, that if I stole a field from Nachman and I sold it to Marshall, and Marshall put in an irrigation system, so we said that when Nachman takes it away from him, Marshall can recover from me the principal, but he can't recover from me the improvement. And we said that Shmuel holds this way because of an interesting reason. Shmuel holds that since I sold Marshall's stolen property, I really didn't give him anything. And when Marshall gave me the money, it really looks like a loan, because he didn't get anything for it. And let's say he gave me $10,000. If I give him back more, it looks like I'm giving him interest on the $10,000 he gave me. So it says the Gemara, is that Shmuel's opinion? V'savar Shmuel lekeach begazlan less leishvacha. Does Shmuel hold that when Marshall buys it for me, I stole it from Nachman, he buys it for me, and he makes an improvement, he can get back his purchase price, but he can't get back the money for the improvement. V'amalei Shmuel Rav Kinan bar Shilas. Shmuel told Rav Kinan bar Shilas, when you make a document, Imlech, ask, because of Shufra, and say that you want to be reimbursed from the best quality land, Ushvacha, and you want to be reimbursed for improvement, Upeire, and you want to be reimbursed for any fruit that's taken away. Now, B'mai, if it's talking about that you're saying that in the event that it's a creditor, and if a creditor comes and takes away the field from you, you want to be reimbursed for the improvement that you put in and for the fruit. It's not true. We said that if a creditor takes away the field and the fruit, we said that a creditor is not entitled to get reimbursed for the fruit. V'amar Shmuel bal chayv goyves hashvach. Iba bal chayv, excuse me, Iba bal chayv, if it's talking about, I have to keep on, in order to understand this Gemara, I have to keep on giving you cases. What's this case that Shmuel told Rav Chinan about Shilas that you should clarify this? Iba bal chayv, if it's the right of a creditor, that means that if I gave a loan to Marshall and and Marshall can't pay, and I'm taking from the buyers, and it's saying that I should be able to have the right to take the improvement and to take the fruit. Miyaslei Peri, Bal Chayv doesn't have the right when he's seizing from the buyers of Marshall. He doesn't have the right to get fruit. He could take the land and its improvement, but shvach in aval peris loy. Elalav, it must be b'lekech megazlan. So you see that when you buy from a thief, when Marshall buys from a thief and he made improvements, you see he has a right to get reimbursed even for his improvements, because it says over here, improvements and fruit. Says the Gemara, no. Amar Rav Yosef, you know what you're talking about over here? You're talking about kigain sheyesh lo karka. What happened was, and now we're changing over here a little bit from what we said before. Remember we said that I rooked Marshall. I sold him Nachman's land. Marshall went ahead and made improvements, and now Nachman takes it back because it's his land. So Shmuel had said that when Marshall gets reimbursed from me, I could give him back the $10,000, which is what he paid me for the land, but I can't reimburse him for the improvement, because if I give him extra, it looks like I'm giving interest on the fact that he gave me $10,000 for nothing. So it looks like he gave me a loan. Says the Gemara now, but if I pay him with land, that doesn't look like interest. It's only if I give him, he gave me $10,000, and now I'm giving him $12,000, and there's no karka over here because the karka was Nachman's the whole time. So it looks like I'm paying him extra for the fact that he gave me the $10,000 and I had use of it. That's only where I'm paying him with money. Rav Yosef, where I have real estate. So where I have real estate and I give him extra real estate to compensate for the improvement, that doesn't look like interest. Says Gemara, but that's not so. You know, there's a law. Amalei Abaya v'chimuta lilvay sa b'sa. Is it allowed? We're going to learn extensively later on in this Masechta that I can't lend Marshall a saw of wheat and he'll pay me a saw later. Because maybe the saw later goes up in value. When I lent him, a saw was worth $40. And when he returns it to me, a saw is worth $100. And then it looks like he's giving me extra because I advanced him the saw. Because I gave it to him, so for the use of the saw, he's paying me interest. And is it allowed if he's paying me in karka? If he's paying me in karka, says no. There we're more stringent because there it's actually a loan. I loaned him a saw and he pays me later a saw, even if he pays me with karka, but there, since it's a loan, we're more serious about it looking like ribbis. Here it wasn't really a loan. Here I sold Marshall land, but it turned out it wasn't a real sale because it wasn't my land, it was Nachman's land. So we say it looks like a loan. It looks like a loan if the payment is in karka and not in cash, there we're not worried about ribbas. Amalei hasam alva, there it's a loan, we're more machmer hachazvina, here it's a sale. Ikadamre, there's another version. Amar Rav Yosef hacha b'mayaskinan kigain shekanu miyodai. What happened is I sold Marshall the land, and at the time, Whit Marshall was very careful. Here he shows unusual foresight. He was suspicious. Where did Rabbi Weiss get such land? So he says, look, I'm making now a kinyan in front of Adam, in front of Aaron and Mel, that if I make improvements and this land is taking it away, you're going to pay me for the improvements. Where a kinyan was made. A kinyan was made, then I have to pay him for the improvements. Says the Gemara, but if it looks like interest, then why does it help to make a kinyan? So obviously, where it's a problem that looks like interest, it doesn't help to make a kinyan. Says the Gemara, there it's an extra loan. Here it's not a loan. Here it's only because it looks like interest. No loan was given. When Marshall gave me the $10,000, he gave it to me as a purchase price because he thought it was my field. Then Nachman took it away, and we say that you can't pay with an improvement because it looks then that I'm giving him $12,000 for the fact that he advanced me $10,000 for what was actually nothing because I really didn't give him land. It was really Nachman's. So there, if Marshall had the foresight to make a kinyan, there we say since he makes a kinyan, it's clearly not interest, and there I could reimburse him for the improvements. Very technical Gemara, Rabbi say. Now I'll take a question if you have it on the sugya.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
Unless I'm missing something, nowhere do I see the actual thieves being punished.
What do you mean by being punished?
No, it's like if we rob something, we go to prison. We serve time. This thief is just paying back what he took.
Right. Jews don't go to prison.
So what's the punishment?
Well, if it would be metaltalin, the punishment would be kefil or dollar the hay. But there's no kefil by real estate. Now, Gufa. Amar Shmuel, Bal Choiv Goy Ve'eseshvach. The din is that let's see if we can mute people over here. Okay. So again, if I give a loan to Marshall of $10,000 and I come and Marshall doesn't have the money, so the din is that if Dr. Block bought for Marshall land, I could collect the land and I could collect the improvement. Right? That's what he said. Gufa Amar Shmuel Bal Choiv Goy Ve'eseshvach. Amar Rava, Teda, you should know, Shekach Koisav Loy Meicher L'Loikeach. When Marshall sells land to Dr. Block, he gives him the following guarantee. Ana Ekim, I'm going to stand by, V'ashafe, and make quiet, V'adake, and purify, V'amorak Zvile Elan, and I will make good this sale, Inun, I will make good this sale, v'amolehon, and all the expenses that you put into what I sold you, ushvachayim, and the improvements, ve'ekim kadamach, and I will reimburse you, v'tzavit zabina dinan, and the buyer, Dr. Black, agreed with this, v'kabel aloi. Now, since we see over here that Marshall has to accept the responsibility of the improvements, that means that the Baal Chayv has a right to seize the improvements. Right. Now, Amalei Rav Chia bar Ovin l'Rava, Elameata, what would be if Marshall gave it? What would be if Marshall gave it as a gift to Dr. Black, where Dr. Black didn't make any of these, accept anything? Would I be able to take away the improvements from Dr. Black? Where such an arrangement wasn't made, I wouldn't be entitled to take the improvements? Amalayin? Yes, that's the way it is. I wouldn't be entitled. Now that's strange. You mean a person that gets a gift is more protected than a person that gave cash? Could it be that the strength of a gift is more than a sale? Amalayin? V'yafa? Yes it is, because he didn't write this. Amar Rav Nachman, I'm telling you, this Gemara is quite an unusual Gemara. It really is quite an unusual Gemara. Amar Rav Nachman, Hamas Nisa Messiah Leila Mar Shmuel. This brisa is a proof to Mar Shmuel. But Vahuna Chavin, Huna, our colleague, Mukam La B'milei Achrine. He says it's talking about something else. The Tanya, if I sell a field, and I sell a field to Marshall, and afterwards it's taken away from him because it was stolen merchandise. So the din is, when Marshall wants to be reimbursed, he could collect his principal, in other words, the purchase price, from even people that bought from me. But for the improvement, he could only collect directly from me, but not from people that bought from me. So you see, so now I just told you the way Rav Huna learns it, but Shmuel is learning it differently, as we'll see in a minute as we welcome in Ruvain. Again, there's an ambiguity over here that it could be interpreted as a case of a creditor, or it could be interpreted as a case of theft. I explained it to you the way Rav Huna learns it, that it was where I sold Marshall stolen property. But that's not the way Rav Nachman learns it. The Tanya, in the event that Marshall sells a field to Dr. Black, and I, since Marshall owes me money, I take the field away from Dr. Black. So Kishu Gaiva, when Dr. Black wants to recoup his losses, because, too bad Dr. Black bought for Marshall, and now, because Marshall owed me money, I took it away from him. So Kishu Gaiva, when he wants to recoup his losses, Gaiva Sakaren, he recoups the value of the field itself, even from the Nechasim Shabbatim, even from Marshall's buyers. Ushvach, but if he wants to recoup for the improvement, he could only collect it from Marshall itself, not from Marshall's buyers. So we see at least that it's proof that the creditor, can take away the improvement from Dr. Black, because that's why Dr. Black, it says Dr. Black to recoup the improvement, he could only recoup it from Marshall. So this is a clear raya, like Shmuel, that a creditor can take the improvements. However, the Huna Chavin, Huna, our colleague, doesn't learn that this case is talking about a case of a loan. He learns that this case is talking about a case of where I sold Marshall a stolen field, where Marshall bought the field for me and I had stolen it from Nachman, and there it's saying that Nachman could recoup the payers because it was his field. So of course he could recoup the payers from his field. So it would have nothing to do with the case of Shmuel. Now, Tanya Idach. There's a lot of details over here, Rabbi say. A lot of details. I want to tell you an interesting thing about learning such Gemara. Even if you feel you don't understand one case, that's okay. It's okay. Tani Idach. HaMeicher Soda L'Chaveiroi. What happened over here is that
Why is it okay?
Huh?
Why is it okay?
It's okay because the 2711 blot of Shas, if you don't understand all 2711, you only get, let's say, 2,000 of them. That's okay. Hashem will give you more life, that the next time you'll understand more. In other words, a person shouldn't feel that if I can't grasp it in its entirety, I didn't get anything. That's a mistaken way to learn. I'll tell you an interesting thing. We used to have a Rebbe who told us that you can't learn, and when you have a kasha, stop until you get an answer. And let's say you don't get an answer, what are you going to do? So you have a question, you write it on the side of your Gemara, and you go weiter. Now, Tanidach, we learned in another brayso. What happened over here is that, again, Dr. Black isn't here tonight, right? Yeah, he's lucky, because otherwise he would be nauseous to hear that he did so many deals with Marshall. I don't know what's the matter with him, and especially
lucky man. Lucky man.
Especially he's a neurologist. I don't know, but anyway. So what happened was over here. What happened over here is Marshall sold Dr. Black a field, and Dr. Black made improvements. Now Marshall owes me $10,000. I come to him. Of course, Marshall says he doesn't have a nickel. So I take it away from Dr. Black. And I take away the improvements as well. So Tanya Yidach, let's see it inside. Marshall sells a field to Dr. Black. And Dr. Black makes improvements. And then I come and ask Marshall for the money he owes me. He doesn't have it. So I take away the field and the improvements from Dr. Black. Kishu Gaiva, when Dr. Black tries to get reimbursed, and this is a subject that Rabbi Kranz brought up to us as we welcome in Dr. Guy. And by the way, the Gemara on Amid Beis is going to get easier. So Ima shvach yoyser al yitzia, if the improvement is more than the expense that Dr. Block that Dr. Block put into the field. You know, there's actual expense and then the improved value. So sometimes the improved value is worth more than the expense. I mean, that's the way most of the time we hope that we make an expense, and then the improvement is more than the expense that we put out. So remember that when I'm getting the field from Dr. Block for my loan, I'm gaining from the improvement. So ima shvach yoyser al yitzia, if the improvement is more than the expenses, so then noiteles hashvach mi bal hakarka, he collects the improvement from Marshall, vayitzia me bal chayv, and the expenses from me. You see, because I'm benefiting that I'm getting the land that I seized from Dr. Block, I'm getting this fence around the field. So I'm benefiting from that. I pay for the expenses. But it was worth more than the simple expenses. That which is worth more than the simple expenses, Marshall reimburses Dr. Block. The ima yitzia yiseira al hashvach, if the expenses are more than the improvement, then ein lo yelo hitzah shir shvach mi bal chayv. Then all he gets is the expenses that Marshall reimburses him for. Now, I have to tell you over here that I have to tell you over here that there's a problem here, because there's something that's not clear. Marshall owed me $10,000. Marshall didn't have the money, so I took it from the land from his buyer, Dr. Block. What equals $10,000? Is it the land with the improvement that equals $10,000? Or is it the land without the improvement that equals $10,000? And I just take the improvement with it. So it says the Gemara, V'ha Shmuel b'may mukimla. What will Shmuel say that this case is talking about? If it's talking about an entirely different case, and it's talking about where Marshall bought the field from me, thinking it was my field, and it turned out to be Nachman's field. It says the Gemara, if that's the case, kasha reisha, it's difficult to reisha. The Amar Shmuel lekeach megazlan, that if you buy it from a gazlan, even though Marshall made improvements, less leishvacha, he doesn't get the improvement back because it looks like interest. And iba bal chayv, if it's talking about a case of a creditor, the way I set up the case, right? That Marshall owed me the money, he didn't have the money, so I'm taking it away from Dr. Block and I'm taking away the improvements. Kosher reisha v'seifa. The reisha and the seifa are both shver. Dama Shmuel, because Shmuel says bal chayv goyves hashvach, that the bal chayv collects the improvement and there's no reimbursement. There's no reimbursement. The creditor doesn't have to reimburse the buyer for any improvements or anything. So the Gemara says we could answer this two ways. We're buying it from the thief, and it's talking about, we said it's no problem that we said, if you remember, we said that it's only looks like interest if I reimburse Marshall for the improvement if I didn't have karka. So here we'll say it's talking about kigain sheyesh like karka. Or, according to the Ikadamre, inami b'shikanu miyadai, where we made a kinyan before Adam that I'll be responsible to reimburse him for the improvement if it's taken away from him. Or iba yesema bibal chayv. It's talking about the case that I set it up that where Marshall didn't have the money and I therefore took the field from his buyer. Normally Shmuel says that the creditor takes the field and he doesn't have to reimburse Dr. Block for anything. He doesn't have to pay Dr. Block for his expenses. But like kasha, here now the Gemara tells us this missing variable. The like kasha. No, not yet. Not yet. The like kasha. Kan b'shvach hamagia l'ksafim. One is an improvement that is ready to be harvested. That means it reaches the shoulders. So it's ready to be harvested. Since it's ready to be harvested, it's considered like it's a separate entity, and there, if the creditor wants to take it, he has to pay for the expenses. If it's an improvement that yet didn't ripen, there he doesn't have to pay for the expenses. It says, there he allowed the creditor to seize the fruit without giving the purchaser any reimbursement, even for expenses. So here now the Gemara gives us the variable that was missing from the beginning. Like kasha, if the amount of the land with its improvement is $10,000, that I take from Dr. Black without giving him any reimbursement. If it's only equals, the land equals $10,000, and the improvement is extra, and I take the land with the improvement, I have to reimburse him for the expenses, because I'm only really entitled to take $10,000, because that's, I have a lien. Marshall owed me $10,000. If I'm taking land plus the improvement, and that turns out to be more than $10,000, so then I have to give him the expenses. The Yavle Shvache, I give him I give him the reimbursement for the improvements, or Masalikle, and I take the property away from him. The problem is, so then why am I allowed to take it? If the improvement makes the land worth $12,000, why am I allowed to take the full $12,000 from Dr. Block? I only have a lien for 10. I should be able to take land and improvement up to $10,000. That Dr. Black doesn't have really a lot of power. You know, what would be if Dr. Black had $10,000? Could he hand me $10,000 and say, I'm keeping the land that I bought from Marshall? So that's a machloikis. That if Dr. Black had money, he can't give me the money and tell me get lost. I say, look, I have a previous lien on the field, I want the field. Then shopper. That's why it's a field worth $10,000. I have a lien on that field. I get to take it the way it is. I'll have to pay you the expenses for the improvement. That if Dr. Block had money, he could tell me, here's $10,000, I want to keep the land that I bought from Marshall. So now Dr. Black could say, look, if I had money, I could give you money. I don't have the money, but take only $10,000 that's owed from you. Take the field, the amount of $10,000. It's worth $12,000 with the improvements, so leave me a section of the field. Namely, ilu havali zuzi. If I had money, I would give you $10,000 and tell you get lost. Have a masalkina mikulara. Hashta the Leslie zuzi. Now that I don't have money, hovli garvadara. It's $12,000 worth here with the improvements. You're only entitled to 10. Give me a little parcel of land, shir shvachai, that equals to the improvement. Because you're not entitled to the $12,000. You're only entitled to 10. Says the Gemara, Hachabamayas, here it's talking about where when Marshall structured the loan with me, he gave me an apoitiki on this land. An apoitiki is an exclusive lien that the payment is going to be from this land. He made an apoitiki, he gave me an exclusive lien. You only get paid from this land. You only get paid from this land, so then I have a lien on all $10,000 of that land. And therefore I have a right to take it. It's coming along with $2,000 of improvement. I have to give Dr. Black the expenses for that improvement. Now, here's a wild case. Now the Gemara gets easier now, Rabbi say. Finally gets easier. Before I start the easier Gemara, it's and we welcome in Richard Rosenzweig, Sandy Grunfeld, Jay Siegel, Ilya Schuttman, Abe Arbach, Yitzi Muller. It's sitting in the back of my mind, Ruvain Shanet's excellent question. And I wanna address it even more. 3 Siyam Hashasas ago, in Madison Square Garden, Rav Palm addressed Gemaras like these. He says, you come to a Gemara, and in yeshivas they might learn 6 lines, and sit on the 6 lines and concentrate for 4 hours. You're trying to absorb a blot of all kinds of difficult cases in one shot, and then you won't see it again for 7.5 years. The Palm addressed it. He says, is that a good plan? So he said, the Chavetz Chaim, Rameya Shapiro felt it was a good plan. But what about you say to yourself, but I didn't grasp it all. So Rapam said this in front of 24,000 people. He said, once you work on studying a daf and try your best, that daf is open to you in the yeshiva Shamala for eternity. But if you don't work on it ever, you won't be accepted for that daf in the yeshiva Shamala. That's what Rapam said.
What infinity is.
Yeah.
You're describing.
But that's what Rapam said at Madison Square Garden. And I also saw this Biksav, B'Shem Rav, who was it that was killed in the car accident with his wife? With a P. Rapinkus. Rapinkus said it also. I don't know if you remember, Shelley, but I wrote this in my article that was printed in the book. Remember the article? Well, I wrote this. This is a very important theme. Also, they're going to say in the next world, who was your Rebbe? Rabbi Weiss. I don't think he explained it so good. So,
you're never going to hear that. Don't worry.
But you open minds, my friend.
Okay, so now here's a real interesting case. I sell Marshall, and Marshall knows it's stolen merchandise. Does that change the story? Marshall buys a field for me. He pays me $10,000, and he knows that it's Nachman's. He knows that it's Nachman's. So says the Gemara, Hikaba she'ein shalai, if he knows it's not mine. Ulekacha, Amar Rav, so Rav says, Mois yeshlai, he's still entitled to ask me for reimbursement when Nachman takes it back, but shvach ein lai, but not for the improvement that he made. V'shmuel Amar, Shmuel says, in that case, afilu mois ein lai. He doesn't even get his money back. Says the Gemara, but my kamifligi. Rav Savar Adam Yodea Shekarka Einlai. Marshall knew that the land wasn't mine. V'gama v'nasan l'shum pikadon, but he was going away on a trip, and he needed somebody to watch the $10,000. So therefore, he went along with the sham that he was buying the field, so that I'll watch his $10,000 when he goes on a cruise. Says the Gemara, so why does he have to go through the whole rigmarole? Let him just say, Rabbi Weiss, could you watch my money for me? Marshall feels I'm not going to take the harayas. So therefore he agrees to the sham that I'm selling him the land in order that I should, that it should be a pikad, that I should take care of it. And therefore, when Nachman takes his land back, I have to return him the deposit. Shmuel says no. Marshall knew it wasn't mine, and therefore when he gave me the $10,000, he gave it to me as a gift. Shmuel savar adam yedeh shekarka ein lai. He knows that it's not my karka. He knows that it's Nachman's. V'gaman v'nasan l'shem matana. And therefore, when Nachman takes the land, I don't have to give it back. Says the Gemara, v'neim alei l'shem matana. Then let him tell me, Rabbi Weiss, I want to give you a gift. Ksifalei milsa. He doesn't want to embarrass me. He knows I'm going to be squeamish. Tzayne matanas yichya. By the way, I saw a great thing that if somebody gives you a gift on Shabbos, you could take it and you don't have to worry about tzayne matanas yichya. It's a good time to give people gifts. On Shabbos, you give somebody a gift, there's no Indian of tzayne matanas yichya. So, says the Gemara, if this is the argument, whether we view it as a deposit or a gift, they argued about this once before. They already argued about this. Here, Marshall betroths his sister. And he says, Hariyat Mekudeshesli with $10,000. Rav says that the sister has to return him the money. She doesn't have to give him back the money. Marshall knows that you can't marry your sister. You can't marry your sister. He just gave it to her that she should watch the $10,000. So it says then, let him tell her that it's a deposit. His sister won't do it. Well, she doesn't want to deal with Marshall. It's a gift. Everybody knows you can't marry a sister. And if he gave her the $10,000, says the Gemara, let him tell her it's a gift. Now they have to argue about it in the case of where I sell him Nachman's field, and also in the case where he's Makadish's sister and Sricha. If we say that only the case where I sell him Nachman's field, Rav, in this case Rav says that Marshall gave me the $10,000 as a deposit. Why? Because there's no reason to say that he gave it to me as a gift. He doesn't give a gift to a stranger. Maybe Rav agrees that the $10,000 was a gift. And if it said only the case of the sister, that it's construed as a gift. But the case where I sold him Nachman's field and he gave me $10,000, that it's a deposit, sricha, that they're arguing whether it's a deposit or a gift by both cases. But now we have another problem. Bein l'Rav damer pikadon, bein l'Shmuel damer matana. Whether it's Rav that says that we view it as a deposit, whether Shmuel that says it's viewed as a gift, then what's Marshall doing in the field and making improvements? If he knows that $10,000 is only a deposit, or the $10,000 is only a gift, and the field is really Nachman's, what's he doing making improvements and using the field? What's Marshall doing in the field? And how does he eat the crops? Obviously, Nachman has been a dormant owner. He hasn't been using it. And that's what Marshall feels. Marshall says, look, I know that this is short term. But just like Rabbi Weiss was using it until he handed it over to me, and Nachman was turning a blind eye, I'll also use it until Nachman takes it away. I'll go down to the land, and I'll work it, and I'll consume it. Just like just like Rabbi Weiss was doing before he sold it to me. When he takes it away from me, the money that I gave to Rabbi Weiss is either, according to Rav, a deposit, or according to Shmuel, a gift. Zuzin Havel Rav, Dama Pikadin, a Pikadin, Shmuel Dama Matana, Matana. So now the Gemara gives us a summation. Amarava, Hilkasa. The law is Yesh loy moyes v'yesh loy shvach. The law is that if in the event that I sell Marshall Nachman's land and Nachman takes it away from Marshall and Marshall made improvements, Marshall is entitled to get the improvement, get reimbursed for the money he paid, and also for the improvement. And even though they didn't make beforehand an arrangement that he has a right to collect the improvement. Hikaba she'ena shaloi, in the event that Marshall knows that it wasn't mine, Velaka, and he bought it for me, Mois Yeshloi, he's entitled to get the money back. We view the money that he gave me as a deposit. Shvach ein loi, he has no right to ask for the improvement. Remember we had a question, what happens if Marshall buys a field for me and he didn't put in a security clause? Or I took a loan from him and I didn't put in a security clause? Achrayus toyus sefer. Achrayus is considered a clerical error, and we assume automatically that I have a lien, bein b'shtori alva, whether I gave a loan to Marshall, even if I didn't write that I, even though it doesn't say that I have a security clause that I could collect from his buyers, or if Marshall bought a land for me and he doesn't have a security clause, it's automatic because it's considered just a clerical error. Bein b'shtori mekach u'memkar, whether it's documents of sale, whether it's shtori alva or a loan. And now we will stop here.